he made me sit. And then he asked me, where are all your family members? So my sisters and my dad, he got them to sit, and he said, I came here just to tell you guys that I don't know why your son is alive. And he should have gone that day in my arms, but I have no idea how and why, but he's alive. I came here just to tell you guys this. And he said, I served in the Kargil war, and I have lost a lot of soldiers while treating them. So I know when somebody is dying, and you were dying that day. And he said, that's the only reason I've come here to tell you guys. It's just a miracle, and I don't know why he's alive.
In a country obsessed with only one sport, and it's cricket, let me remind all our listeners and viewers that there are so many other sports in India. There are so many other sports that are being run parallelly along with cricket. One such sport happens to be motocross racing as well. Racing, when we think about racing, we think about F1, we think about MotoGP, but we also have to remember that there are other sports within the racing gambit of things. One such sport is motocross, and there are also champions in this particular sport. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Joshua Pramod, a former India #1 racer, 13-time champion in the motocross space in India. And this conversation is about capturing the raw truth of being an athlete in any sport, and what it takes to become a very high performance, peak performance athlete. Stay tuned for this amazing episode, because personally for me, it was an emotional roller coaster, and I'm sure even you will feel the same. So please stay tuned. The interesting thing about sport in India, when we talk about, if I have to sit in a dining table and talk about sport, it's always about cricket. It's predominantly been cricket for a long time. It's surprising that there's a hockey World Cup going on in India as we speak, but not many people are even giving that kind of coverage that it deserves, right? And you are in a sport which is a very unknown sport, which is motocross. It's something to do with bikes. Honestly, I have no idea myself. Okay. And my point is, there's off-road and then there's on-road. There's so many technicalities. There's so many nuances in this sport, right? So for the interest of my viewers, my listeners, and for me, please educate us about motocross and motorbike related sports in India, if I can use that word. Go ahead.
Yeah, motorbike racing is of two forms. One is, as you just mentioned, one is off-road, and then one is what we call circuit racing.
Okay.
So basically, we have in off-road, we have motocross, or we call it supercross, which is, again, the track is purpose-built just for the race. And then we have rallies. And then we have the cross-country rallies, which span out over a period of 6 days, and they cover about 2,000 kilometers.
Okay.
So that comes into the off-road for two-wheelers. And if you're talking about circuit racing, then we have the road racing circuits that are there. For example, we have one at Sri Perumbudur and one at Coimbatore.
Okay.
So that
are these the only two places across India, or
we also have both international circuit?
Yeah, which is the F1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that lot of guys don't race there. So you can go there and rent out the track and ride your bikes there.
Okay.
So that's what a lot of other guys do too. So these are the two basic forms of two-wheeler racing that we have here in India.
Okay. So one is off-road and one is on-road, right?
Yes.
I mean, the on-road
circuit racing, you just call it
racing, which is basically on
Grand Prix, Grand Prix.
Grand Prix level stuff. This is what MotoGP and all these things come into that.
Yes.
Now in off-road, I've heard that there are multiple types and scenarios of racing on off-road. What are those types?
Okay. Motocross is again with jumps, but it is outdoors. It is more into a natural kind of terrain where they build jumps on the natural terrain. It's usually on a little hilly area. So it makes it a little more easier for you to make jumps. So it's more natural. Supercross is purpose-built in a stadium or in a closed area. And that again has got more number of jumps, and the track's a little smaller than the motocross tracks. Motocross is much bigger in terms of the distance per lap would be much bigger, more than supercross track. Then you have the rally championships, which again is from point A to point B. You travel at a particular amount of speed. That is your where you go to your competitive stages, and the competitive stages are usually in the outskirts of the city and things like that. And then we have the competitive stages where we do our fastest timings in that. So that is again cross country.
Okay.
And you also have the more endurance rallies, which span of, which like I mentioned earlier, it goes on for about 5 to 6 days. And that again is every day you ride through different areas in that specific location. And then you have your own particular stages. You have your dedicated stages for that set. And then we participate. And again, it is right there is in the stages, it's your fastest timings that come into account.
And when you say cross country, can you give us an example of the starting point to end point in India, as giving us an example of how many kilometers the stretch is and everything?
Okay. One of the cross country rallies that I could generally give you guys an example of is it started in Chennai.
Okay.
And we finished in Bangalore, but we had to cover right up to Kerala. So Chennai to Kodaikanal.
Oh.
Kodaikanal to Coimbatore.
Okay.
To Palani.
Okay.
And then to this place called we go across to Gonikupa, right through.
Okay.
Go near, do the stages in the coffee stages, and then from there, then we head back to Bangalore.
So it's a complete 360.
Yes. So you're doing at least 2 states.
Oh. Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Karnataka.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is called the Dakshin Dare.
Okay.
And that's a 5-day.
How does this happen? Is this similar to a marathon? I mean, what is it like? I mean, you're racing for so many places.
Yeah.
And you're doing it on actual highways, or there's a
highways that is called the transport sections.
Okay.
So where you will be required to go through certain areas that will have population and that you will have to use the normal roads.
Okay.
So then you have a regulated time there. You're not going to be going fastest there.
Okay.
The organizers give you enough time for you to reach from point A to the competitive stages.
Okay.
So that is, your speed is regulated, and that is usually 60 kilometers per hour according to what the traffic rules expect us to do.
So you are racing amidst actual traffic?
No, that is not a competitive stage.
Okay.
So basically you just get from point A, the start point, to the competitive stage start point.
Okay.
And there in the competitive stage, you start your fastest riding. So you'll have a TC, a time center there. They will give you your time. When are you going to start? So it's an individual rally. So they give you your time. Then you take a start from there. And that is again completely in areas where there is not much public, obviously, and there's no city roads that you're not riding through.
Okay.
So you would be crossing, for example, when we're doing the Rajasthan Desert Storm, you're doing most of the time you're in the desert, riding in the desert. And then you only get back again to, once you finish all your competitive stages, you get back through transport to wherever you're staying over. So again, there you reduce your speed.
So when you say desert, I feel that's completely off-road.
Yes.
Whereas this particular path, the Chennai to Bangalore via Kerala path, seems like a on-road path.
Yes.
I don't know what to call it.
The transport sections can be on-road. So even the desert storm, you come out of the desert when you need to go to another transport, to another competitive stage sometimes. So then you are on the common road. So there again, that's called the transport sections where you have to maintain speed limits.
Okay.
So you're not racing there.
Okay.
But if you reach late, then you have penalty points. If you reach early, you have penalty points for that. And all of that add, and at the end of the rally, depending on who's got the least amount of penalty points and who's got the fastest time, then you're classified and you take the positions on the standings accordingly.
So it must have been a good experience riding in the desert.
Yeah.
More than the Chennai to Bangalore stretch.
Yes, definitely. I love the desert. I love riding and racing in the desert. It really gives you your mind. It allows your mind to open out fully. You don't have anything that's holding you back when you're in the desert and things like this.
And there's no gaps. I'm assuming it's all the race there because there's anywhere you're on. You're not entering civilian area. It's just desert. And the track is pretty much well laid out, I'm assuming.
But there is no laid out tracks for you in the cross-country rallies.
Oh.
It's just mud roads and off-road areas.
Okay.
So you just go through that. It's basically cross-country rallies are natural roads which will be off-roads or it'll be broken tarmac or whatever. You will have your rallies on those stages. So there's nothing specially made other than the traffic. If they're having a place where you're crossing traffic, in those places, traffic will be stopped.
And I'm assuming there are specific bikes for these races. You
Yes.
cannot use a regular bike.
You can. So you do have different categories.
Okay.
So depending on what your budget level is, then you can participate in a category. And you can use most of the Indian bikes for rallying. You have categories for most of the Indian bikes.
Okay.
You also have, in the same rallies, you'll have categories for foreign bikes. So depending on your budgeting, then you can choose which category and which machine you would like to be on.
Okay. And this is in just the entire motocross thing in India,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, I have to speak from a different perspective, all right? You are a 13-time India number one, 13-time champion.
Yeah.
You're number one in this country. Like literally, you're a former India number one racer.
Yeah.
Right?
You could say that.
Yeah. And, there are very few people who we can call number one in sports in India. Okay. So, from your point of view, please tell us how your experience has been. Firstly, kudos to you for choosing a sport which is not cricket in India, which is unheard of. Any dining table conversation, whether you're in Tamil Nadu or Karnataka and everything, it's all about CSK, RCB. It's not, at least now. But we've always been obsessed with cricket, right, as a country and everything. But now you chose a sport where, first of all, I think it's high risk. Number one, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong in whatever I'm speaking about your sport. High risk, high performance, and of course, riding a bike for a long, long time and going through those slopey regions and maybe maneuvering hairpin bends and everything, especially when you're riding in hilly regions, require a certain amount of fitness and capability and everything. You chose a sport which is not very well recognized, not very well heard of in India. Let's face it. I mean, this is what it is, right? What made you take this up? And you are number one in India. I can't believe I'm speaking to a number one athlete. I'm getting goosebumps talking to a number one athlete.
Feel bad now.
I'm not making you feel. No, I don't intend to make you feel bad. But you're former number one. Okay, so it's like saying I'm talking to a former number one tennis player of India. I mean, it's be like Leander Pace or Mahesh Bhupathi sitting here. It's like that feeling for me about motocross. It's as simple as that. Let me to just give you an analogy of what I'm feeling as a tennis fan.
Thank you.
So tell me your story. I mean, tell me your story of how you started this, why you started this, and how has it been? All yours.
Yeah.
The mic is yours.
Well, it was not any particular choice that I had to make. Oh, okay, which sport should I take up to do? But it was something that was in me. I always feel. And it started way much younger in age. I feel it started in my cycling days.
Okay.
That's where it all started. My grandfather is the one who always pushed me to learn cycling also. He's the one who used to teach me, to run behind me, hold the cycle and make me learn. And so this happened once. We had a race in school. Okay. We had a cycle race.
Okay.
And it was my grandfather. It was not even me who actually made my mind up. It was my grandfather who said, "Why don't you take part in this race?" And then he prepared my cycle the previous day, took it, got it serviced, came back, and then it goes on that I won that race. But I think that's where it started, put in that little bit of seed in me. And also I used to travel with my grandfather to the market, to the shops, and he'd be on his cycle and I'll be on my cycle. And I would never ride on the road. I would always be on the mud road. I would be along the road cycling in all the potholes and in the mud and in the stones. So my grandfather always used to scold me. He'd be like, "That's not the place where you're supposed to be riding. The road's laid here so that you ride here. But you choose only that." And especially if it rains and there are potholes, I would look for the potholes and maneuver my cycle into all the potholes and cars. So I think it was something that was there within me that I always slowly grew.
Then it's safe to say that you would be probably one of the only few Indians who love riding in today's India's roads. Or is it safe? With all the potholes that are there.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but I would still prefer to be, I think, on the track rather than the roads.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it started way back there, and it slowly went on as I grew up into biking, and I grew up around bikes because my dad and my uncles all had ESDs, so I grew up around bikes. So I did have a liking towards bikes a lot. So cycling itself was one of my favorite things, and I used to have the house that we stayed way back in Trichy was pretty big, and we had a big garden.
Okay.
And there was enough ample space for me to cycle inside the compound when there was nobody to take me out. So I used to put down all these tires, old tires, my dad's bike tires, and then put some logs. And I used to use my cycle to go over all of these things. I like to have that feeling, of there's an obstacle and I have to go over it. And that is where it started to slowly take form and shape. And once we were here in Bangalore, the exposure to bikes was much more.
Okay.
And the garage where my dad used to go and give the bike, he used to race too. So that gave me that bug again. It was stronger then.
Okay.
So it started off slowly from that. And I was lucky enough that I did my first race when I was 17.
Okay.
So I was lucky enough that my dad allowed me to. But it gave me permission, rather say. But started then. And after that, not been really looking back. I'm not looked back.
Okay. So you've raced across all over India, like every part of India?
Yes, pretty much. Other than, I think, the Northeast, I would rather, other than Assam or Rajasthan, wherever we had the races, all around India, we've traveled over the past 20 years doing the national circuit, basically. So wherever the organizers and the governing body organizes the race events, then I used to be there. Yeah.
This sport, when I'll tell you my personal story with this sport. There used to be a show called Power Rangers Ninja Storm, which used to come on TV long back. Okay, this goes back to my school days.
Okay.
And the Power Rangers are basically, you're aware, right? The guys who do some weird things and they become Power Rangers. That's what I was. I was like, and when I was a kid, I used to follow that. Okay. And this particular TV show, what I'm talking about, the Ninja Storm series. There were two guys who were also Power Rangers, and they were into racing.
Oh.
They were into dirt race. I mean, they basically used to do those stunts, and they used to ride specific bikes and everything. So that was my. Actually, that was the only thing I can remember of when I look into my own past and think about, have I ever seen this sport? Because unfortunately, I've never seen this on TV in India. Indian racing, never seen it. And that brings me to the question saying, that you have given a lot of your life to a sport which is not, whether it's recognized or not is one part of it, but it should, first things first, I think, to be recognized, it should be distributed. In the sense, it should be shown. Like, for example, somebody watches this particular episode, they recognize it only if I show it to them, right, in the first place. But in your case, in this sport's case, it's not even shown. Leave alone asking for recognition or something, right? The recognition comes with few people taking choices. But it's not even shown. It's not even there on TV and everything. But yet you kept at it, right? So what's happening with the sport, and why is it that not many people are aware of the sport?
Like you rightfully mentioned, the TV coverage earlier was really not there, I would say. It was hardly any coverage.
Okay.
And very rarely it used to come on TV much after the events are all done, and nobody would even know when it comes. Some of the guys who know would instantly text, okay, on so-and-so day, it's coming on Star Sports on this time. So then we get to watch. But otherwise, the general public is very difficult. Now, they have started live streaming it.
On YouTube?
Yeah, the past 2 years.
Okay.
So that is, I think, one step forward towards giving the audience a chance to watch more easily. That is something, I think, the one step forward. Mainly, there definitely hasn't been much of media coverage for this sport. I think that is definitely a big hit and it is.
No, but we Indians do love F1, do love MotoGP. F1. I mean, I know a lot of conversations that happen, about all the F1 racers, F1 drivers, the driver rankings, the car rankings, and everything. And especially if you look at Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai, these four cities, they do have a lot of very religious following of F1 and MotoGP.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, we do have that market. I mean, it's not that Indians are oblivious to racing or don't like the fact that racing or speed and everything. We all have that feeling that we love watching all these things, but somehow the promotion has not been done, isn't it?
Yes. I think the governing body has to take that initiative and step in, because if you want something to grow, if you want it to reach the masses, you have to be able to give them a platform where they can get to see it, and only then it's going to get more people involved in the sport also, and bring about more, it would help people understand what it's actually all about. Because I had a simple thing, this must be, it was very funny for me, because when one of my aunts, my dad's cousin, after I won a race and I'd come home and we'd gone to Chennai to visit them, her thing was, oh wow, so you just won a race. When are you going to race with Michael Schumacher? So what I do, what I'm trying to say is, her perception of motocross was F1 car and Michael Schumacher. So that is the difference. For me, in my family, there is sometimes some people have been, so then I had to explain to her. But that is where people are ignorant, because it's not easy for you to get any information about motocross. There are no magazines now there's slowly things that are coming up, but it's never published. It doesn't have that much publicity.
No, the fact that I asked you this question initially, saying what's the difference between MotoGP and motocross and off-road and on-road, and these are things that are actual questions of everyone in everyone's mind, right? And I come from a very, very oblivious, ignorant perspective on this particular sport. I'm being very honest with you, right? I have not seen a single motocross event in my life, and I've not heard of all these things. I'm being very honest with you. In fact, I told you this before also. But the fact that it is ignored at such a governing level, that is depressing to me. My point is, okay, if I don't want to watch something, and if I have a choice, because I have a choice, I will choose whatever I want to watch. That's my consumer perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, but if the governing body itself is not even making an effort to portray this sport, or to not promote, I won't even call it promote, to show the sport, showcase the sport to the whole audience. Let whatever numbers, people who are interested will watch, people who are not interested will not watch it, but at least give people a choice.
Yes.
That is where I come from. And that's my point of view. If they give me the choice, whether I watch it or not, that's again my prerogative. That's my personal way of looking at things. But at least do that. That distribution itself is not there. That is kind of appalling and everything. Why is this not even there out there? Why is the sport not even there? At least give people a choice of saying, you know what, you watch MotoGP, you watch all the old races where Valentino Rossi has been winning and everything, but at least also watch some Indian stuff.
Yes.
We're doing that with cricket. We're doing that with a lot of other sports. Why not some sports which are there? Especially in India, where there are so many hills, there's so much of geography variations where people can leverage to do your sport, and which is highly dangerous as well. Let's talk about that for a second. Let me not delve into it. Isn't it a very, very, very dangerous sport?
It is. Motocross, generally racing is a dangerous sport. And off-road racing takes that danger to a slightly more crazier tangent. One of the first things is, if you're going to get into off-road racing, never tell yourself, or the first thing you have to accept is injury is a part of it.
Oh, okay.
So how well you're prepared for your injury is the only thing that you need to work on too. And that is by working on yourself. So you are going to get hurt. You are going to fall. In off-road, if you say, I'm not going to fall, you're nowhere pushing your limits. Or even a beginner would fall. That is bound to happen because you're basically, it's only gravel beneath you, that is beneath the tires. So whatever you're trying to do, the bike is going to react a little more differently. It's basically there's no traction. What we call is there's hardly any traction. You're always fighting against the odds to control your bike, to maintain stability, and to try and go as fast as you can. So there's the chances of having injuries are really high in this sport.
Can these injuries also be fatalities?
Yes.
Yeah.
Recently, we just had one fatality a month and a half ago.
Wow.
And I lost my teammate in a race right when we started together. We wished each other luck at the start line. And in one lap, he was gone. So there are fatalities.
Okay.
So, yes. So, like I said, the risk factors is very high.
Is there support given to such instances where I'm assuming you're in a peak performance mode. You obviously wear all the gear that is available.
Yeah.
You race on, like you said, not roads. You literally race on mud and gravel and sand if you're in Rajasthan in a desert. I'm assuming there should be some sort of security, financial security given by the governing body to all the racers.
There's no financial security from the governing body.
When I say security, I mean insurance. So
okay. But we do have a racing license that all of us have to apply for.
Okay.
Along with that, there is a insurance cover.
Okay.
But it's the same way. It's not a cashless insurance cover. It is, you pay for everything, then you submit the bills, and then it is reimbursed. But that again is through the insurance companies.
Okay.
But as such, we don't have a single insurance company that gives you the provision to get a high risk policy for racing.
When you say high risk policy, what exactly do you mean?
High risk is this racing, and there are certain sport that comes under high risk, and they're usually not insured. Insurance companies are very, how do you say, skeptical about insuring because you are going to have crashes, you are going to be injured. So that is I think one of the biggest things we lack in India is the support
system. Is this there
system.
globally? Like, is this a practice globally?
No, globally it's different.
Is there?
It's only in India I feel that we don't have the systems in place where we have insurance and we have things. And for most of us riders, life is hard. It is not that you're earning so much that you can just go on. You have so much in your bank balance that if you get injured, you can instantly get the best medical treatment. You can't. So I think that is something, again, the governing body, if they can look into it, would help the riders. Apart from that, you bring in more people into the sport. I knew personally of a friend who crashed and while practicing. And he had a normal insurance cover. So his family had to lie at the hospital that it was a road accident. And he got insured, but his family said, this is it. Because now you crashed, we can't have anything more serious. And the insurance companies, we don't have an insurance for you.
Okay.
So that becomes a big deciding factor, even for his parents to look back and say, since you don't have these facilities, we don't want you to do this sport.
Okay.
So I think you'll bring in more people into the sport and also take off that thought from a rider's or participant's head that, it's there that what if I get injured? If you have that taken off your mind, you would definitely be able to ride better and perform better.
When I look at sports people, not riders or anything, just sports people in general, before they walk out to the field or to the play area, to the racetrack, whatever, right? They have two things on their head. One is they are either looking at the best outcome on that particular day, and they keep thinking about that over and over again. They visualize the entire process. Right? They visualize the entire process of, okay, I'm going to get this opportunity to turn here. I'm going to race this guy, or I'm going to hit this particular line. I mean, if you're playing tennis, if you're playing table tennis, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And second thing on his mind is, you're basically in Zen mode. All you can think about is your sport, is your activity, and that's it. right?
Mm.
And that's also comes from a lot of security as well.
Yes.
That chip on your shoulder becomes bigger if you have a lot more pressure on you.
Yes.
But you seem to be telling me about a sport wherein the chip is so big, it is so freaking big, that you're not only talking about you are going on a race, you don't know whether you're going to survive this entire race. Anything can go wrong.
Yeah.
And if you get injured and if you fall, you don't know whether you have the financial security or the insurance that will cover you.
Yes.
And if you also win, there's not much incentive at the end.
Yeah.
And if you lose, and if you're fine, it's just another day.
Yes.
Oh my God. I mean, this is the sport you're talking about,
Yes.
literally.
Yeah. But this is in reality.
Are things changing now?
Well, I hope more initiatives are taken from the people who are in the responsible places for them to
in the governing body
yes,
of this
so they have
sport.
to.
Okay.
I feel taken that initiative. If not, no. I don't. I feel that's the reason that our motocross or the off-road racing in India is so low, or it's at that level. It hasn't really grown. It hasn't really flourished. So it is just not going to. If it needs to sustain and grow, they need more to do. They have to do much more.
How many people are in this community? Can you give me a number, like across India? A lakh?
No.
Less than that?
Yes. Yeah. In two-wheeler off-road racing.
Yeah.
I would say much less than that.
About more than 50,000 people?
No.
Less than that?
Yes.
All over India?
Yes.
I'm talking about racers.
Yes.
Who are into it.
Yes.
Who want to enter into it as well.
Yeah, I could say, on the whole, you could put about 10,000 guys.
10,000 guys across the country who are into this racing.
Who are not necessarily in the national circuit. I'm talking about guys who would be all out there, could be in the local events, things everywhere. There are so many events. So if you take that into consideration, the max I would say is about 10,000 guys in two-wheeler. Yeah.
And this has not grown at all from...
Yeah, it hasn't. See, before COVID, for example, our start lines used to be full. We have 22 start gates, and so there's only 22 bikes that can be there. We used to have up to 24 in the foreign bikes categories, which was never heard of. After COVID, there are about 4 or 5 bikes now on the start line.
Oh.
That's how badly it's changed.
Okay.
Because financially, everybody took a hit during COVID.
Okay.
So if you want to go back into this, you need to have the security and financial stability to do it. And there are so many people who've gone through so much of hardships during COVID, who lost their loved ones. So many of them have had to change or deviate from what they were doing. So now it is just shrinking.
Okay.
So if we need it to grow, then we need much more work from the governing body. That's for sure. Whereas if you see the road racing, the circuit racing, it's going the opposite way. It has grown so much. It has grown so much now, and there's so many initiatives that are being taken there. That's the same thing. If they don't need to do it at such a big scale too.
Just create some initiatives.
Yes, and that will change.
As it comes. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about injuries in the sport and also your personal experience in the sport, right?
Yeah.
13-time number one in no way is a. I mean, it's achievement is a very small word for it. You're not 13-time number one India racer. We're winning so many races across India and everything, right? And you're talking about, whether you're talking about a small sport, big sport, whatever, you're still racing at least about 150 people or maybe 100 people in one race. 40 people.
Yeah,
people.
you put around that. Yes.
Yeah, and you're still coming number one is always great. And you're 13-time number one player, right? Number one racer, sorry. That's the point. That's the problem with India I was talking about. I still have to call you a player. I mean, that's such a disgusting thing. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. You're number one racer, rider, right? Tell us your experience. I mean, you come from Tamil Nadu, right? You come from Trichy, and how did you enter the sport? You told us the why about it because you just loved riding on muddy roads. But after going through it, did you go through any experiences that are maybe like, did you have any accidents? Did you have any injuries? What was your what was your life cycle of an athlete, as they call it? How did you go through the entire thing?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, falls and injuries are a part and parcel of this sport. So yes, I've had a lot of injuries. I've had quite a lot of surgeries too.
Okay.
I think on the whole, roughly I would say it's about 28 fractures that I've had.
Roughly 28
fractures. Broken bones, yeah.
Okay.
For a span of about 20 years.
Okay.
Or 18 years, yeah. 20 years you could say. And some of them have, I would say have been really bad.
Okay.
There were a couple that were really, one instance that got actually, I would say, was the worst in my life. The accident was one of a cross-country rallies.
Okay.
Here in South India.
Okay.
And I was participating in it. And I overshot a hairpin bend. Okay. This was in Wayanad, in the mountains. Kerala. So Kerala, Wayanad. So I overshot the hairpin bend and I flew out of the hairpin bend with the bike into the gorge at about 50 feet down and I crashed. So I broke my femur, my leg, and punctured my lungs and broke 7 ribs in one accident. That was definitely, I think, one of the biggest accidents in my life. And people couldn't even get down to pick me up from there because it was all just bushes and trees. So it took about an hour plus for them to extract me from the gorge and put me in the ambulance. And even that stretcher couldn't come down, so they had to come and lift me up. People had to come down with ropes and lift me up and pull me up. And that was the closest call because I came to the ambulance and I was, they put me down in the ambulance. And I was just like, they already started giving me my saline and all of that to keep my vitals normal. And I felt there's something, blocking my throat. I felt like I wanted to cough.
Okay.
So I told the doctor, who was treating me, I said, doctor, I want to cough. So he said, okay, get up and cough. So I tried to get up and cough, and it was blood. And when I tried to get up, I felt all my ribs that were broken move separately. So immediately I told the doctor, and he saw the blood. He's like, lie down right now. There's no moving, no coughing. Immediately to the hospital. And there was traffic on the road, so they had to stop traffic. They had to stop the rally to get me out of there, give the ambulance a clear route to get through. So that had to be done. And during that time, I was losing consciousness because of all the internal bleeding. And the doctor who was there, he kept slapping me and keeping me up. He's like, Joshua, you're not, you can't close your eyes. You close your eyes, you're gone. You're not going to get up again. You're not going to make it. Okay. And he was on the phone, screaming at the organizer, stop the rally right now. I'm going to lose him. Give me clear way. I need to move him to the hospital right now. It's an emergency case. So then, of course, from there, they shipped me back to Bangalore to Manipal. So I spent a good 10 days at ICU. And finally, when I got home, this doctor, he was at the Air Force Station. He's a doctor from the Air Force Station at Yelankam. So he was one of the doctor there. So he came home looking for me. He took my address from the organizers and came along with a friend of mine. My friend's name is Kutapa. He brought him home, the doctor, and he said, he made me sit. And then he asked me, where are all your family members? So my sisters and my dad, he got them to sit, and he said, I came here just to tell you guys that I don't know why your son is alive. And he should have gone that day in my arms. But I have no idea how and why, but he's alive. I came here just to tell you guys this. And he said, I served in the Kargil war, and I have lost a lot of soldiers while treating them. So I know when somebody is dying, and you were dying that day. And he said, that's the only reason I've come here to tell you guys. It's just a miracle, and I don't know why he's alive.
When was this? Which year?
2012.
2012.
Yes.
Okay.
So, 10 years ago.
Yeah. Almost 11 years ago.
Yeah.
11 years ago. And what happened after that? I mean, did you take like a 2-year break or something to come back, or?
Due to the, what do you say, the injuries that I had, the kind of injuries in that particular crash.
Yeah, I'm assuming broken ribs, ruptured lung, broken leg.
Yes. So,
and you still, and you stopped racing. I mean, stopped racing in 2020.
Yeah, when COVID hit. Yes.
So okay. But tell us about that, please.
Yeah. So this is all of us, including me. I felt it was going to be quite a task trying to get back to normal. Mm-hmm. So I still remember telling my dad in the hospital. I told him, I think I'm done. This is the end. So I'll call it quits now. So my dad told me this. I'll never forget this. He said, right now you're physically hurt, you're mentally hurt, you're physically stressed, you're mentally stressed. This is not the time for you to make those decisions. Once you get back home, you take your time, you get well. Once you're physically and mentally back, you decide. And whatever your decision is, I will stand with you.
Wow.
So I came back and it was tough with things to decide. At that time, the team that I was riding for, they were very skeptical. They were looking at least over 2 years. My doctor, the pulmonary doctor, was very concerned. He said, definitely your lungs is not, it's not an easy thing to heal right now. And my leg, the ortho also was, he said, once you get your leg strong again, you can be back. But with all the injuries, for you to recover your own body, they were looking at least about a year and a half. So for me, I came back home, and once I started being in that house, in that room, and looking back at things, I knew I wanted to go back and race. So I knew I wanted to go back and race. And we have, of course, things are pretty tough everywhere. And especially when I'm talking about, there are politics that are played everywhere. So I knew I didn't have much time before I was going to lose the opportunity that I had. And we had one championship that was going on, and I had already taken part in the first round of that championship, and I was sitting third in the standings.
Okay.
So, and for me, I was always this guy about the championship. For me, I'll work through. My target used to be the end of the year. It is not, of course, you win every race, or you do your best at every race for you to accumulate your points. So for me to always try to be on the top step of the podium was my target and my aim and my goal. And I always worked accordingly like that. So I couldn't run the Supercross championship that year. I could only take part in the dirt track championship because the Supercross championships, the events were already happening when I was at home in bed. So I wasn't going to happen. But I knew I had a slight chance at the championship at dirt track.
And what was your ranking that time?
I was sitting third in the...
You were sitting third? Even though you met with an accident and you were off
yes.
for a few months.
Okay. Luckily, we didn't have any dirt track events at that period. So I could, I didn't miss an event.
Okay.
I could go back to the second round. And the second, that is the...
What's the time gap between both of them?
Luckily, there was about 4 months.
4 months?
4 months, luckily, for that year. And my target was, I need to get back to that. I wanted to be back on my feet in 4 months and be riding a bike on the racetrack in 4 months.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You had a ruptured lung.
Yeah.
Rib cage also.
Seven ribs broken, yes.
You had a broken rib.
Yeah, seven ribs broken.
7 ribs broken, yes. And also a broken leg.
Yeah.
And the doctor almost felt that you were, he basically said that it's a miracle that you're alive.
Yeah.
And you wanted to get back to racing in 4 months.
Yeah. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds. Please
go on. Go on.
So, when I wanted to race in 4 months, it wasn't just going to happen.
Okay.
I needed to get up and work, really work, to be able to do that. And nobody believed that I would be able to. I would say probably even I didn't doubt in my mind because I knew what I wanted to do and I had set my goal. I wanted to be there on that bike in 4 months' time. So I had to put in a lot of work. And, my dad, for my legs, for me to get my legs back, I needed to be on the cycle. And I couldn't be cycling on the road. So I had to be on a stationary cycle. So it was really crazy. Even at home, they were like, but okay. And my dad used to bring his bike right up to the door. And I used to literally just manage to get myself up to the door and sit on the bike.
With the walker.
Yes. Yeah. And then he will drop me in the gym. And he'll come back after an hour to pick me up. And for around 1 hour, I'll be on that cycle. Getting back my legs and working on my lungs so that I would be able to get that cardio plus legs. So that had to happen.
So your ribs take time to heal.
Yes. It was pretty painful because you can't take a deep breath. You can't laugh. You can't have any kind of a sudden...
Yeah, you can't move.
Yes. So it took time to understand how to... Even my sleeping was completely messed up. So I was a guy who always slept on my stomach. And here I couldn't because my ribs are broken. And then that's where I started. And I kept on at it. And the ortho gave me a go-ahead. I used to go to the hospital every week just for a checkup because I wanted them to assess my improvement.
Green signal, basically.
Yeah.
Saying, please go. Okay.
And then I wanted them to assess my progress and tell me how is it? Is it getting better and better? So in the 4th month when I went to my ortho, he looked at me and he said, can you please remind me which leg we operated upon?
They look identical. They were
very good. So with my, otherwise, of course, if I'd taken off my pants and I was in my shorts, then you can see the stitch marks, so you would know. Okay. But if not, he said, it looks identical. That's how much you built it back. Okay. And he said, go ahead and race. You want to, but check with the pulmonary doctor. Lungs. So he was too skeptical because he said, Josh, one impact and your lungs will rupture again and you can die again. I mean, not die again, but
wow.
But it's like, we can't give you a guarantee what could happen at this time. Okay. So it was tough. And even my sponsors were not really happy. Okay. They were not expecting me back. So when I landed up, they were, no, it's not really. So I had to, again, put in a lot of, I had to request them, or literally plead with them and sign a death bond so that I could get a bike. And once I signed the death bond, I got a bike to ride. And
in the interest of everyone who don't understand what is it?
It used to basically, anyways, when you're riding for a team or anybody, you already have a declaration that you sign, indemnity. But here I had to do a second one because of my injury. So I had to mention a personal letter I had to write mentioning the injury, when it happened, how it happened, and that I want to race again, and that I need a bike, and if anything happens to me, and in case of an accident, an unfortunate incident, if something happens to me, I will not hold anybody responsible. I will not, I wouldn't hold my team responsible. I won't hold anybody, and it will solely be on me.
Okay.
So I did that and got a bike, and went on to the second round with a limp. My leg was still not fully functioning. I was at least happy that I could be there. So finished that race. I was there on the podium in all the 4 races that day, and that still kept me around about that 3rd place in the championship table. And we had 8 more races to go. Okay. 4 rounds of the championship, so 8 more races to go. And mathematically, when I sat and calculated, if I won every race from them, I will give give myself a slim chance at the final race
to win. Being number 1.
Yes.
Okay. For the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for that, I needed to win 8 races.
Okay.
In a row.
Okay.
And that's where I put my work in. In fact, my team was like, how do you come back? How do you, after every injury, you're back. So you come back quicker than usual than other guys. It's about the physio that you do. It's about the hard work you put in. Once you're injured, you can just lie down and let your things, get worse. But it's the amount of physio that you do. How many times the physio you do and how rigorously you work on yourself after that. So I had time. I still had, the final round was in December. So it was July when I finished the second round. So I had another 4 or 5 months till the end of the year. So I could keep working. Of course, there will be races in between, but I can keep working till then. And that's exactly what I did in terms of worked, so that I give myself that one chance, that single small window that is there. I could get through that. And I thank God for it. Right? He helped me right through. He always has been the one. And how much I needed that inner push from myself. It's definitely comes from above. So I pushed that and went on to win all the 8 races that year.
Wow.
The remaining 8 races and win the title for 2.
You ended as number 1 that year?
That year.
The same year where
Same year.
The doctor said you were almost dying?
Yeah. It was both the premier categories. Thank you.
Crazy, really. I mean, you actually won all the 8 races after 4 months recovery from a ruptured lung, broken ribs, broken leg.
Yeah.
And you recovered in 4 months. I mean, you pushed yourself.
Yes, that's what I would say more is the recovery is in your own hands. So especially with injuries, and if you're an athlete, you've got to push yourself. There is no option for it.
Crazy. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. That is one of I always look back and say that's my most special year in my racing career. I always say 2012 because of all that happened.
Yeah.
And to win in
technically the worst year and the best year.
Yeah.
It's like good balance between both extremes.
Yes.
Shit, okay. This was the year 2012.
Yes.
Wow. This is, inspiration is not a word for this. Okay, and since we have come to the tail end of this podcast, your story is damn inspiring. Your story is like very, overwhelming also. I mean, just listening to your entire journey of that racing was emotional roller coaster for me. I was like, okay, what happened next? What happened? Oh, damn, he punctured lung. Okay, what happened next? And it's crazy. So there are a lot of people in India today who want to pursue sports. Anything. It could be racing sport. It could be a team sport. It could be an individual sport, whatever, right? But they don't understand the nuances of mental clarity, mental health, physical health, and all that. Tell us a little bit about how one should, because I'm assuming your focus was so tunnel and you were so hyper focused, so passionate towards something. And I'm sure a lot of people would have said, don't do this. Why do you have to do this? You've almost died once. Why do you have to put yourself in this position again and again and again? Tell us a little bit about role of mental clarity, mental health, good support system, the kind of sacrifices an athlete has to go through, irrespective of whoever it is. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, the raw truth about being an athlete.
Yeah. The first thing is, as you said, support system. For me, I would definitely put my dad and my sisters as the ones who were there. If they weren't there backing me up, I wouldn't have been able to do it. No ways. So I think that gave me a good foundation. Okay. Whether it was finances or whatever, but they were there as my moral and emotional support, which was the biggest thing. And the other thing is, if the choice is up to us to work hard, if we're passionate about something, give it all you've got. If you want to bring out your true potential, you got to bring out the true potential from yourself. So you got to work at it. And of course, knowing what your sport, whichever sport you're in, what it requires and how you need to work is also the next thing. You need to plan. See, people say, You're just riding a bike, so you just sit on the bike and twist the throttle and you go fast. Why you have to work out? No ways. It is one of the most physically demanding sports in the world. So when you're talking physically demanding, medically it is proven that you need to have the same fitness as a tennis player. That's what we are talking about. So minimum. Okay. So that's the kind of things that goes into it. So you have to work when you know what the sport requires. You got to work in that particular angle and work. And definitely success will come. You will bring about the true self in you. And whether you reach the top or no, because you'll be satisfied from within, which again I feel is very important. Not just doing something which is easy or just saying, okay, yeah, I'll just pick up this sport, I'll do something. But take time to think what you love to do and to put your heart and soul and mind into it.
And having good support systems, because the fact that you mentioned that your father told you when you were on the hospital bed, and he told you, listen, do not take this call right now.
Yeah.
You are down and out right now, but you are also, do not take this decision now. Recover and then take a call.
Yeah.
That is such a difficult thing to say. I mean, it is such a difficult, it's first of all, it's filled with emotions because nobody wants to see their loved one in a hospital with a ruptured lung and everything, and to have that much of support. Then to tell you that is support. That is actual support. That's the definition of support system, right?
I was surprised too when my dad told me that, but I'm so ever grateful to him.
Yeah.
For that, what he said. Because at that moment in the hospital, if he said, okay, quit, I would have just quit.
And you would have been number one by the end of that year, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes conversations change life. I mean, they change the pattern of life and everything, but wow. I mean, Joshua, there are a few people who I meet who truly, there are a lot of people who they kind of inspire from a story point of view, from telling me what they've gone through and everything. But you know what? This is the first time I can say that I'm not inspired, but I feel inspired. I feel that. I feel that vibe. I feel that emotion. And whatever you said, this thing that you said, no matter what you like, I mean, just give it your all. If you're passionate about something, this is the most cliched thing anyone can ever say to anybody, right? I've heard that hundreds of times. I've seen it on so many videos, but I've never felt it the way I felt it because you said that. Maybe it's because of the story and everything that you've gone through in a sport that has zero incentive, literally, and yet you've given it all and be number one, achieve the pinnacle in the sport, and yet knowing that you have that tunnel vision, that tunnel focus. The role of you are a very mentally tough, very mentally, I don't know what to call you. But how do you deal with off days? Just to wrap up the last question, how do you deal with days when you feel very low? How do you push yourself? Because I think it'll be a few good nuggets of wisdom to our listeners on when you're on your low days. How do you push yourself to do that extra? Because if I wake up tomorrow and say I don't want to do this because I'm feeling low and I want to sleep, and if I listen to your story, it's like a slap, not on only my face. It's like he had a ruptured lung and he was able to do it in 4 months. What the hell are you up to, right? I mean, that's the kind of story that I'm talking about. So when I notice, how do you push yourself? What is that inside you that pushes you?
It's a hunger to be better, hunger to become better, and hunger to not let my passion die. And the fact that I could tell myself or look at myself and say, you're not done yet. And of course, we're all humans, so you will have low days. And the other thing is, I think of the better days, the days where I've had success, tasted success, and also felt good. So that gives me another push to say,
You've gone to that.
Yeah. So if you want to taste that again, we got to get up and move.
All right. Last few quick questions. Number one, you see a lot of riders today. I'm not talking about racers or sports people with a racing license. They ride recklessly. They don't wear helmets. They do not believe in safety measures. As a professional racer, former number one in India in motocross, and as a person who has gone through such a terrible accident and multiple injuries, you said 28 fractures of whatever number you mentioned. Please give some sense into these young people, millennials, Gen Z, who are on the road riding two-wheelers. What would you tell them?
Take life a little more seriously, because the roads today are very dangerous. I feel the racetracks are so much safer. I'm honest. I am honest. If you see me riding on the road, you would not recognize me.
Okay.
I definitely feel we can't take life so for granted like this. And with the traffic conditions today and the road conditions, it's extremely dangerous. So I would always say to have the right protection gear, make sure your helmets are on, you're wearing shoes, good shoes when you ride, mainly to try and follow the rules. I know it's very tempting. It feels great to go fast. But I would definitely suggest that those who really want to go fast, you have the racetracks now that you can go and hire out, rent it out a day and just go and enjoy yourself. Go as fast as you want and enjoy yourselves in a controlled environment rather than the streets is zero control. There are people crisscrossing everywhere. There's dogs running around. It's just madness and potholes everywhere to avoid, which itself is
a dangerous thing.
Yes. So definitely to be responsible riders on the road is what I would request and urge and encourage people to do out there.
And one more question is, you're in great shape as an athlete. Okay, I mean, I know how old you are. I won't even tell people because you don't look like that. But you're in great shape. What are a few fitness tips that you would give to people? Because I mean, you told me that you train for 3 hours every day.
Yeah.
Apart from your racing stuff, apart from riding bikes and everything, just in the gym, you have like 2 hours in the morning. And you also mentioned one important thing. This was, of course, offline. But I would like to reiterate here that you did a 365 day without a break, 3 hours a day working out.
Yes. That was a goal I set for myself. And I was very happy I achieved that. For myself, it was a personal thing, It was
when was this, 2013, 14?
Yeah. It was after yes.
Wow. Okay.
So for me, my simple thing is more than gym, I would always suggest outdoor and work on your cardio. For a healthy living, cardio is number one. So half an hour a day, I think all of us can spend time.
Walking, swimming, running.
Yes, you have to put in at least 20 minutes of running and then some amount of ground exercise, freehand exercise. That's more than enough for the gentle person. Unless you're going into a sport or you're going into a dedicated thing to do, then you have to push it. But otherwise, for a human being, for general health, and with today's conditions, with the pollution level so high, with emission level so high, for a general healthy living, you have to work your lungs and your heart. I believe that very clearly. That is the most important thing. So, some amount of cycling or running every day, at least 4 days a week, I think is good.
Okay. Wow, this has been a very crazy conversation with you, Joshua. I mean, I don't know what else to say to this particular. It's one of the very few podcasts which is very inspiring, right? And it's been an honor to have you on our channel, the Indian Millennials podcast. It's an honor to have a former number one India sports person.
Thank you. And it's a privilege to be here with you guys.
So thank you so much for doing this and keep inspiring people. I want this story to be out there and I really wish you the very best. And I honestly hope that, you can inspire a lot more people to take up stuff that they're truly passionate about and understand how important support system and everything is in the world. And of course, sure, your personal sacrifices, everything also is there. So congratulations on a wonderful career, Joshua.
Thank you.
And wishing you the very best in the upcoming phase of your life as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And it's a privilege and it's an honor for me to have been here. Thank you guys for making this happen.
Thank you.